And we are live. This is Canada Hoops Daily Podcast, a live reaction pod for Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Yes, people were a little bit worried because OKC let one slip away in Game 1, but they bounced back in a major way. A huge win for the Oklahoma City Thunder as they even up the NBA Finals at 1. A 123-107 victory as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander showing again why he is the MVP of the league with 34 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 steals. 4 steals. Can't forget that. An efficient 11 for 21 shooting for Shai as he leads the way, but really OKC won this game because the others followed. Great support game from Jalen Williams, who had 19, Chet Holmgren. He had 15 off the bench. Yamans Caruso with 20 points off the bench, including 4 threes. Aaron Wiggins had 18 points off the bench. He had 5 threes. That really is why the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to even up the NBA Finals, but also even it up in such a massive way. This was a beatdown. And it's funny because, obviously now at this point when you're watching the Indiana Pacers, it's always like, wait a second, is any lead safe against the Indiana Pacers? Are they just one run away from coming back? And so you have everybody kind of worried. You have people kind of, wait, when do you take your starters out? Because you just never know. We've seen some crazier comebacks for sure. But I got to say, Indiana it's great that you were able to come back. And I don't know how many people saw Brian Windhorst after Game 1. He was talking about how he spoke to someone in Indiana's coaching staff. He didn't get too specific, obviously. But the point that he made was they talked about coming into this series, the way that they felt they could win. And it would be from playing from behind, making the game tough for OKC, and seeing if they would falter in the clutch. I kind of think that that's a tough, I get that worked in Game 1. I understand that. But long term, that's a very tough way to think that you're going to win games. Know that you're going to have to play from behind. Like, why do you have to play from behind? Why can't you just start off the game well? Like, that's one thing I really don't understand at all. And even just, I'm focusing in on this. I'm doing this in a roundabout way because I'm trying not to come off as if I'm crushing Tyrese Halliburton. But I'm going to say this. This guy you can't come out and just no-show first halves of games in the NBA Finals and then, continue to make people have these conversations about, oh, where should he be ranked? And he's the most, overrated or underrated. And should he be this? And should he be that? And it's like, I don't know. I think watching Halliburton in this game, especially in the beginning of the game, it's so interesting to me because you see the difference between him and Shai, right? Back-to-back games. And I'm going to say something here, but I know this sounds crazy because obviously the series is 1-1. But that was an epic comeback in Game 1. So it could be really, like, if you're OKC, you're in your locker room talking about how, hey, we could be up 2-0 right now. We are in firm control of this series. And my point is, we've seen 2 straight games where Shai has come out and said, I'm taking control of this game. I'm getting off to a good start. I'm leading my team. Everyone get on my back and follow me. It's 2 straight games he's done that. Now, the difference for Shai between games 1 and 2 is in Game 2, he was a lot more efficient, right? Which is great. But as a star player, you know what you have to do to win games at the highest level, especially in the NBA Finals. Now, as I switch over to Tyrese Halliburton, it's 2 straight games where he's no-showed early on in both games and allowed his team to fall behind in massive ways. And listen, it's cool that, you had a crazy comeback and it was an amazing comeback in Game 1. But for this game, right, to see that Halliburton had 12 points in the fourth quarter, right? 12 points in the fourth quarter, Halliburton had 17 overall in the game. You're 12 points in the fourth quarter when the game is already over. That's not tricking me. You know what I mean? Because we can look at box scores and you're gonna be like, hey, Haliburton, 17 points, 6 assists. You obviously need way more than that if you're Indiana. Pascal Siakam struggled in this game. He had 15 points, but just 3 of 11 from the floor. And if you're Indiana, you're looking at things kind of like, oh, we got lucky in game 1. We did our job in terms of getting a split, but overall the trends are not in our favor at all. And you think about how Indiana plays. They want to get up and down. They want to run the floor. They want to push the pace, move the tempo. But if you go back to our preview that we did on this series, one of the things I said in terms of if Indiana does in fact have a chance of winning this series, they would need Pascal Siakam to ball out every game. Like he needs to be in the 30s, like high 20s to 30s. Because it's all well and good when, hey, we share the ball, we get a little bit of something from everybody, and again, hey, all their starters in double digits, and that's cool. But high-level basketball still comes down to when you need a bucket, who is getting that bucket for you? That's what it's always going to be. That's just, and it's not even about, we think about this moment in terms of just winning time, right? Do you need a bucket? Can you get a bucket? But no, there's points throughout the game when a team is on a run, when there's a huge drought happening, where you just need to put points up on the board. And Indiana just struggled in every facet of that. And listen, it's got to come from Haliburton. It's got to come from Siakam. And neither of those guys really had it going tonight. And that's why this game was curtains, right? Like you can hope for, hey, you got 5 threes from Benedict Mathurin, and that's cool, right? Like Miles Turner had a good start to this game. That's cool. But if you're not getting what you need from your 2 best players, this is going to be a short series. This is going to be the gentleman's sweep that everyone thought they were going to see heading into this series. Because the other part of this to me is if you're Indiana, right? You need to play up and down, cool. But at some point, you got to come up with something, some form of resistance against OKC and against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Because so far, we haven't seen that. So far, what we've seen is, Nembhard do his best. He's making Shai work hard. But again, I thought Shai did a really good job, especially early on, of just getting downhill and hitting like simple floaters. It wasn't even like a mid-range jumper. He was like getting in the paint and getting paint touches and just hitting his floaters early to get himself going. And if he's playing with that type of ease, again, this could be curtains in game 5 for the Indiana Pacers. But as mentioned, 123-107 victory for said Oklahoma City Thunder. Interesting stats here. Oklahoma City only lost 2 games in a row twice this season and have yet to do so in the playoffs so far, right? So 17-2 following a loss this season, 5-0 following a loss in the playoffs. I mean, that's dope. That is dope, right? And you wonder because you see such a crushing loss after game 1, and you see how calm and cool Shai was in his post game, right? And it's like, yeah, it's okay. It's basketball. You even saw him in this post game. He's like highs, lows, like, you just got to do it, right? So let's go through this game a bit here. And obviously this isn't going to be, as in-depth quarter by quarter because this game was out of hand early, but I thought, there's a lot of interesting things people were talking about in terms of the starting lineups and would they go back to the 2 big lineup? And no, they stayed with their starting lineup from the first game. And I know that people debated that so much, but I was way more focused to see, forget about who starts. How are the minutes divided up? That's more important to me as someone watching and trying to see what you can get from Oklahoma City performance one game to the next, because you don't want to overreact, right? And there's a reason why they made the switch in the first place. And it's because, Cason Wallace is pretty good. And also it's not about who starts, because if you watch enough Oklahoma City, Alex Caruso doesn't start, but he finishes a lot of games for them, especially when it matters. So who starts? Whatever. Not that big of a deal. To me, the bigger deal was you saw a lot more of the two big lineup, though, in this game. They had long stretches where you saw both Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein on the floor. I think the very important factor for that is the poor rebounding that was done in game one of this game, right? Of the series, pardon me. Because game one, and I totally missed this, right off the bat in my breakdown of talking about game one, but a huge factor, and a lot of playoff games come down to this for sure. But the rebounding margin in game one, Indiana had 56 rebounds to OKC's 39. And so when you talk about a two big lineup, when you talk about a 1-point game, a rebounding margin like that, again, 56 to 39, like that's huge. And so again, you don't overreact because you lost a game that you blew a 15-point fourth quarter lead. So you don't like completely overreact, but you acknowledge, hey, there's some things that need to change here, right? And if you go to this game now, okay, cool. Rebounding numbers, 43 rebounds for OKC to 35 rebounds for the Indiana Pacers. And to me, the big thing to look there, Hartenstein had 8 rebounds in this game. But obviously when you lose a game like that and you lose a rebounding margin like that, it's not just about the two bigs, right? It's about the other guys on the floor too, So Shai in this game chips in. He has 5 rebounds. Jalen Williams has 5 rebounds. Kenrich Williams, who played great, just giving them spot minutes. He had 4 rebounds off the bench. Caruso with 3 rebounds. Aaron Wiggins, we mentioned earlier, 4 rebounds. So it's a collective, just, hey, we can't get beat on the glass like that. When Indiana plays with such a tempo and such a pace already, giving themselves so many more possessions because of the fast-paced nature of their style of play, you can't give them even more possessions with offensive rebounds. So it's interesting because there are a couple plays where, with the double bigs, they try to have TJ McConnell or even Halliburton take advantage of Hartenstein. And they're bringing up the fact on the broadcast that, hey, Miles Turner giving up some threes to Miles Turner, where Hartenstein is either slow in his help and then recovering to the 3-point line. And I'll say this. Hey, if Miles Turner wants to continue to jack up threes, and as I said, Miles Turner had a good start, right? What do you do in this game? He had 16 points in this game, but he was only 1 of 5 from 3. So my thing is, hey, if you're telling me the trade-off is I'm going to play both of my bigs, Hartenstein might be a little slow getting out to Miles Turner, so he's going to shoot. He shot 5 threes in this game, but if he wants to shoot 8 threes, if he wants to shoot 10 threes, right? Cool. I'll let Miles Turner do that, right? Like the trade-off of me being better a rebounding team as opposed to being afraid that Miles Turner is going to shoot the lights out and that's going to be the cause of losing a game. Hey, I'll take that trade. I will take that trade. After one, OKC was up 26-20. And the big stat here was Chet Holmgren. He had 6 points in game one as a whole. The entire game one. Chet Holmgren had 6 points. He had 9 points in 9 minutes in the first quarter of game two. That's a huge switch. That's a huge swing. The other huge swing, Jalen Williams, making a lot of plays early in that second quarter with SGA on the bench. He was doing everything offensively. He was going downhill. He was handling the rock. He was making plays for himself in the mid-range game. He's getting all the way to the cup. He was even finding his teammates, as I mentioned, the bench giving such great minutes, right? Wiggins was awesome. And he wasn't hesitating to shoot. They were able to find him, and he was knocking it down super easy. Kenrich Williams, I mentioned he had great minutes. He had a great pass to Chet for a huge dunk. OKC extended the lead at that point to 42-27. Timeout Indy, and then they come out of the timeout, and this is where it's kind of frustrating, as I said. At this point of the game, it's 42-27. It's middle of the second quarter. Halliburton's basically invisible. Your team falls behind because you're not really checked into the game yet. And, it's just such a reminder of what I say all the time. There's levels to this, right? And we don't need to be so quick to put people in like this top tier of superstar and who's this and who's that. Like Halliburton's a good point guard. He's a really, really good point guard. But we got a ways to go before we're talking about, putting him in like the upper tier of players in the NBA, right? Because there's so many other facets to it. And, how you lead your team every night, right? Because that's the ultimate difference between good and great is just consistency, right? Shai can do it every night. He's going to put up a 30 piece. You're not asking Halliburton to put up 30 in a game, but you're asking, hey, we need you to put some points on the board at certain times, right? We need you to get a bucket here and there when we're going in a massive shooting drought. What we don't need, this guy checks back in the game, turned the ball over right away in that second quarter, missed a deep three, tried to go at Chet, couldn't do it at all, lost the ball. Like it's just, as much as everyone's fallen in love with the 3-point shot, when you're trying to get yourself going, you're trying to help your team get back in the game, maybe that's not the time for the step back deep three. Get something going to the basket, maybe get to the foul line. Like those are the things that I think, will help Halliburton as he continues to grow and evolve and become a better player, a more consistent star, right? Because you can't have these no-shows, especially in the NBA Finals. It's just not a thing. OKC extended the lead with their bench, with SGA on the bench, pardon me. And when SGA checked back in, he started cooking right away. They did a lot more having Mathurin cover SGA in this game. And I think, I don't know, we know Nesmith was hobbled. We know there's some stuff going on there. Obviously, we don't know the extent of it, but we're not seeing a lot of Nesmith on SGA at all. And that's kind of a problem because Mathurin was getting that business. Like Shai was just going to work. He was in the mid-range game, driving the lane, got the tough and one. Wiggins hit a 3 to make it a 21-point lead. It ended up then SGA, he drove, got another tough bucket. They went on a 19-2 run before Indiana called timeout. And during the run, 19 points for OKC, right? On 7 of 12 shooting and 0 turnovers. During that same span, Indy had 2 points on 1 of 7 shooting and 4 turnovers. And then right out of the timeout, Indy turned the ball over. Miles Turner, right? Turnover. And that's where, again, you need your stars to make a play and just get to the free throw line, right? I know I bring up Kawhi all the time, so maybe I'll bring up Chauncey Billups, or Chris Paul. That's where a vet, they check back in the game and they just say, hey, I need to get to the free throw line. My team I just need to see some points on the board for my team because a 17-2 run is tough. Very, very, very tough. And Siakam and Halliburton just didn't have it. They couldn't get to the line. They couldn't do it. It was 52-31. And then, Siakam tried, put his head down, drove the lane, got a tough and one layup. Then next time down the floor, right to Siakam again to the cup. And that's really the aggressiveness you need to have, right? Off the OKC miss, Siakam leading the break. He found Nesmith for 3. Timeout OKC. The once 19-point lead was cut to 13. Out of the timeout, Caruso hit a 3. OKC just responds. Thunder up 59-41 at the half. Shai had 15 points. OKC had, this is a difference in the game, right? OKC had 13 assists total in game 1. They had 14 assists in the first half of game 2. And that's the difference, right? I mentioned the scoring. You lose a 1-point game, cool. But why was it even so close to begin with? Well, talked about the rebounding numbers, obviously, and he talked about the lack of assists. Those two things blatantly changed in the first half of game 2. And Chet as well. Chet had 6 points in game 1. He had 11 points in the first half of game 2. That was pretty much the ball game. Halliburton, as I mentioned, started getting it going, but by that point, it's way too late. Shai was just getting his points, but as mentioned, getting his points much more efficiently than he did in game one. So when Shai's cooking like he was cooking tonight, 34 points, 11 of 21 shooting, got to the line 12 times, made 11 of them. I mentioned the full stat line. I love to bring up the full stat line because that tells me how engaged you are in the game. Because it's cool that he's going to go out there and score 30, right? But he's also giving you 8 assists. He's also giving you 5 rebounds, also giving you 4 steals. Again, impacting the game on both ends of the floor. That's just MVP type stuff from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So when he's cooking at that level, when your second leading scorer is Alex Caruso off the bench, who had 4 threes in this game, your third leading scorer is your man's J-Dub. He had 19 points. Then you got Aaron Wiggins off the bench with another 18 points. Like how that's too much for Indiana to come back from. It's just too much. And I think, at the end of the day, if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder, you can tell that even though they're a young team, they weren't ruined by that collapse in game one. They didn't come out tight at all in game two. They came ready to play. And I don't know if that's just because, hey, they went through it already. Like this happened in the Denver series where they blew game one and then they came out in game two and they won by 20 something. I think when I looked before this game, the spread was like 11. And I'm like, geez, like Indiana's still getting no love at all here, point spread wise. And hey, that's why Vegas is rich, right? Clearly they know what they're doing. But as this series goes along, I think Indiana just brought some hype to the series from being able to get that game one win in the fashion that they did. But now as you look at it, it could be curtains for them because the trend, if you don't play the result, like the end result of what happened in game one, and you just look at it from the viewpoint of how the game actually went, it's tough to think that Indiana has a chance in this series. It just is. It really just is. And I got to say something too. The noise in Canada needs to be a lot louder for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now. My guy is out here putting up 30 pieces in the NBA Finals. Okay? 30 pieces in the NBA Finals. Here's a stat. SGA has reached 3,000 combined points between the regular season and postseason. He's the 12th player in NBA history to do so. Again, only 11 other players have scored 3,000 points combined between the regular season and the postseason. And one of them is from Hamilton, Ontario, and his name is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Again, in this country, we need to be a lot louder about what this man is doing because here's a list of names that Shai just entered, okay? The other people to do this, I'll go from the bottom up. Elgin Baylor did it in 1962-63. Rick Barry in 1966-67. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, heard of him maybe? 1971-1972. Bob McAdoo in 74-75. Oh, Shaquille O'Neal in 99 and 2000. Kobe Bryant in 2005-2006. Kevin Durant in 2013-2014. James Harden 2018-2019. Luka Doncic 2023-2024. And then Wilt did it 5 times. And a guy named Michael Jordan did it 10 times. I also noticed that there's a guy that's the all-time NBA leading scorer that doesn't find his name on this list. That's pretty interesting. But anyways, that's a story for another day. But again, Shai putting his name into the likes of MJ and Wilt and KD and Kobe and Shaq and Rick Barry and Kareem. Like, come on, guys. What we are watching is just incredible right now. And we need to stand up and yell from the mountaintops all across this country about what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is doing right now, because this is incredible. I know it's a running joke of how I end the pod talking about I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. It's facts, like there's a lot of people who have spent I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about people well beyond me who put in a lot more work than me. My point is though, there's a lot of people that did a lot of work to talk about basketball in this country and put the platform on to talk about the NBA and tell the stories of Steve Nash and Vince Carter, to this generation that we're seeing right now. Like it's awesome even just watching Shai getting guarded by Andrew Nembhard, and then they sub out Nembhard and bring in Benedict Mathurin, right? And you're watching these Canadian kids go at it at the highest level of the sport. It's just a beautiful thing to watch and a beautiful thing to enjoy. And hey, we'll continue to be right here the entire way as it looks like, hey, I mean, we talked about it at the start of the series, even more confident now about watching Shai Gilgeous-Alexander lead the Oklahoma City Thunder to an NBA championship. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, a reminder that this is just game 2. A big win in game 2, though. 123-107. Oklahoma City does it. 34 points, 8 assists, 4 steals for the MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He led the way for his team, but he got a lot of help from the supporting cast. Meanwhile, the stars of the Indiana Pacers, they didn't really show up. Not much from Pascal Siakam. He struggled. Same thing for Tyrese Halliburton. But the series is all tied up at 1, heading to Indiana for game 3. We will be here to break that all down as well as, we enjoy talking ball. So hit us up in the comments. Really appreciate the people wherever you happen to be listening to this pod. Big shouts to you. Again, I know you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and of course on YouTube. Search Canada Hoops Daily. You'll be able to find it wherever you're looking. You can even search On Blast. You can find it there as well. But really appreciate the people rocking with us here on the pod. Send in your comments and questions, and we will continue to read said comments, as it goes along, as, the series goes along. We'll be here to talk ball because that's what we do. That's what we enjoy to do here. Another big win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But of course, said it again, but I just want to give you the realness of the line. I really did used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is Canada Hoops Daily Podcast, as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.